Hello students, good morning and welcome to Avyan IAS Academy. Today we will be taking up active and passive voice. So as you can see that I have written two sentences on the board. One says Sita loves Savitri. In fact, we are dealing with two sentences both in active as well as passive forms. So the active sentence says Sita loves Savitri. This is the subject, the verb and the object. This is the sentence in the active voice. Why is this said to be a sentence in the active voice? Is because the subject does the action on the object. Hence, there is a direct action that is taken up by the subject on the object. Hence, it makes it an active voice. However, if we try and transform this sentence into the passive voice, this is being transformed as Savitri is loved by Sita. So what is the change that we are seeing here one is that the form of the verb is being changed, and other than that, another change that happens is the object and the subject changes their position, and this is then supposed to be a passive sentence. Why is that a passive sentence? We call it a passive sentence because the subject here has become the object and no longer is doing the action directly, but rather it receives or suffers the action. Hence, it is known as the passive voice. In the similar way, we can take up one more example and see the mason is building the wall. This is a sentence which is using it has a verb in the continuous tense. However, this is in the active voice where the mason is the direct agency carrying out the action of building the wall. So this is the subject and this is the object. The subject is directly acting on the object that is building the wall. However, if we transform this sentence into the passive voice, the sentence becomes the wall is being built by the mason. So since we are using a is building, we will make it up as is being built by the mason. So here again the object and the subject changes their positions, and the mason here is no longer directly doing the action but is the receiver or the sufferer of the action. Hence, that makes it a sentence in the passive voice. Now, as you can see that love is being changed as is loved and is building is being changed as being built. We will go into the detail of how exactly we change one form to another, because there are certain standard protocols which we will be taking up, and knowing that those could be helpful while changing one sentences from active to passive. So now we'll look at the changes that happens in an active and passive voice, and you can take them up as standard protocols while you try transforming a sentence from active to passive. So for the first case that we are taking up is a simple present tense. For example, we are taking up the verb take or takes. So, for example, if we do with a sentence, she takes up history in school. The passive form of that sentence would be history is taken up in school by her. So if we are using the same sentence and using the same verb as for is or are taken, that is in the present continuous tense, this would be transformed as is or are, but we will include a being taken. So history is being taken up in school. If the sentence becomes she is taking history in school, this sentence would get transformed as history is being taken up in school. This being is an insertion because we are changing it in the present continuous tense. However, now if we come to the present perfect tense and use and try and change a has or a have taken, this becomes has or have been taken. So being is an insertion for the perfect tense. So if the same sentence recurs as she has taken up history in school, it would be she has taken up history in school. It would be transformed as history is being history has been taken up in school. So that is how we keep on changing the tenses for the simple future, so for the simple present and present continuous and present perfect. Now if the same sentence goes in the simple past tense, took would become was taken or were being taken. So that is the change that we will take in the simple past tense. The root of the verb remains, as well as including a was and a were along with being. For the past continuous tense, if we are doing was or were taken, it will be transformed as was or were being taken. Just like for every continuous tense, we will be including a being in the sentence to keep the transformation proper as in the continuous tense. However, if it is we are doing for the past perfect tense, we will do as had taken will become had been taken, like we did in the present tense as and included a been here. In also the past tense, we will be including a been. Just the only transformation that happens is between either has and have and had, but the been remains the same as well as the participle form of the verb. Now if we are to take up sentences in the future tense, future tenses would look like the shall or the will become shall or will be taken, or it could be shall. If it is in a continuous tense, it would again become shall, or it would include the being, and then we would transform it into the for the future continuous tense. However, if we will take up words like can, may or must. So when we take up cases like can, may or must along with take, which is the root verb, it will become can be taken, may or must be taken. Now we'll demonstrate all this with a few examples. So now we'll demonstrate the change between the active and the passive with these few examples. First example, the cat killed the mouse. So your cat is the subject and its action takes place on the mouse. So if we have to transform this sentence from active to passive, it would become the mouse was being killed by the cat. In the second sentence, the police arrested him. In certain cases, we sometimes drop the agent. By agent, we mean that since we know that it's, and sometimes it is also like directions are being given to students to drop the agent in the sentence. If not, you can keep the agent. However, if it is asked, what you can do is he was arrested. That is how we will transform the sentence. He was arrested. In certain cases, we know it's by the police, but it's also a bit understood that a police will arrest him. So you might drop the agent. If it has been asked, you can drop the agent, else you can keep it that way. The boy caught the ball. The ball was being caught by the boy. Saurabh threw the ball. The ball was thrown by Saurabh. Everyone loves him. He was loved by everyone. So that is how we'll be doing the changes from active to passive, by changing the tense as well as the subject and the object. The subject would become the object and the object would take the place of the subject, and the subject in the passive form no longer is the active doer of the action, but is the receiver of the action. So in a quick glance, we will see what we did today. We did the active and passive voices and how they are being transformed from one form to another. While we were discussing their transforming from one form to another, we took up individually the tenses like simple present, simple past, present continuous, past continuous, and also their perfect tenses. Along with that, we also took up doing the can, may and must, which would be transformed as similar to the ones which we did in the present and the past tenses, but since they were models, they needed a separate mention. So just as we had taken up a few examples which were talking about the transformation between active to passive, here we will take up transformation which goes just in the reverse direction of passive to active. Here the sentence is, he was praised by his father. Generally, when we find out in the sentences by his father, by his friend or something which is talking about an agent, it is an easy identifier to find out that the sentence is in a passive form. So when the sentence says he was praised by his father, in order to transform this into active form, we will say his father praised him. His father praised him. However, in the next form, in the next sentence, if we have the horse was frightened by the noise, in order to transform this into active voice, we will say the noise, this becomes a subject, the noise frightened the horse. For the next sentence, not a word was spoken by Latif. We will say Latif did not speak a word. Also for this, it would be the noise frightened the horse. For the next sentence, we shall be blamed by everyone. We will transform this as everyone shall blame us. This is a sentence which we are talking about in the future, so we will take up as everyone shall blame us. In the final sentence, we have Alice was not much surprised by this. In order to transform this into an active voice, we will say this did not surprise Alice much. How there are certain cases in sentences and examples. For example, when we say smoking is prohibited, which automatically means smoking is prohibited here. So as I was saying in the sentence, smoking is prohibited and admission is denied. These sentences might just not look to you as passive sentences, but they are in the passive voices, because here admission is denied to us or them or anybody, or smoking is prohibited here. It is automatic. These are implied and hence had been dropped, as I was talking about the dropping the agents in the sentences. So here, if we have to transform the sentences into active voices, smoking is prohibited, you can say they prohibit smoking. And in the next sentence, admission is denied, you can say they denied admission. However, in the next two sentences, someone has picked my pocket. The transformation would be my pocket has been picked. So this is a transformation from active to passive. These two are transformations again from active to passive. However, I wanted to show that when we are using words like someone, everyone, no one, so it might just be dropped at the end of the sentence, and you can just simply say my pocket has been picked. In the next sentence, where we have circumstances will oblige me to go, the transformation can be I will be obliged to go. So you can, it is no longer needed to say I will be obliged to go by the circumstances, because it is automatically understood that the circumstances are obliging someone or somebody to go from one place to another. Hence, this we need to keep in mind that in certain cases the agents in the sentences are being dropped, where the agents are being automatically understood, as we had begun the sentence when we were doing the active and the passive. We had begun it with the sentence, he was arrested by the police. So the transformation was the police arrested him. Today we'll do a quick recap of all the things that we did for today. The things that were done were the transformation between active and passive, and how we can change one sentence from either from active to passive or passive to active. What we have to keep in mind essentially while transforming one to another is the change in the subject and the object position. An active sentence is called so because the subject is the doer of the action. However, in the passive sentence, the subject has already taken up the position of the object and is no longer the active doer of the action, but is rather an passive receiver or sufferer of the action. Hence, we call that a passive sentence. In the transformation of active and passive voices, we should also keep a keen eye into the change of the forms of the verb as according to the simple past or simple present or even the future tenses. For example, as we were doing there, and I had given you certain standard protocols for how you will, for example, when there is in the sentence, it is being taken up as being, and when we are doing with perfect tenses, it would be either have or has or had been, and we include the word been for the perfect tenses. So those were the things that we generally should keep in mind while transforming sentences from active to passive voices. Another variety of transformation that we talked about was where we generally drop the agents while transferring one from active to the passive voice. For example, when the sentence is the agent is automatically understood, for example, as in this one, someone has picked my pocket. Like my pocket has been picked, it is no longer needed to write the someone at the end because it's automatically understood, and using the agent in such cases would just become redundant. And also sentences like this, circumstances will oblige me to go, I will be obliged. And in sentences like, and also for the fourth type of sentences, there could be sentences which does not very much seem like passive voice sentences, but are so. Because, for example, when we say admission is denied or admission is prohibited, trespassers will be prosecuted, or smoking is prohibited, such sentences, when it is addressed to the other people, it's generally given in the passive form. However, it does look like it is an active form, but remember that they are not so. And so while we are transforming those sentences, we need to be a little careful about them. So that's all for today. Thank you. Have a great day.